June 2nd, 2000, Olathe, Kansas. A businessman is putting cuffs at his farm as his wife and kids watch in horror. For years, this family man, scout leader, and Sunday churchgoer was a skilled con man who leveled up his game as a pressed shirt, fatherly-looking predator when the internet became a haven for chat rooms. Women who answered his employment ads and those who he met in these chat rooms would ultimately turn up missing, even though their families continued to receive reassuring letters and emails that they were perfectly fine. In the end, authorities would attribute the murders of 8 women to his name, but the real victim tally remains unknown. This is John Edward Robinson, the internet's first serial killer. Hey, y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potter. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends in Bengali.
I feel like we've been to Bengali before.
I've never said this one.
Okay.
Shagada.
Very nice. Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who love true crime can find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you want true crime with us all the time, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Go to Facebook, type in H2H, In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a couple questions you're in.
Yep.
Go join. I post lots of other photos and extra information in there. It's a great group of folks.
Yes, they are.
And the people who listen every week could say all of this with me probably in unison by now.
All together now.
I try to get through it really quick.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. And we have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send the redhead some coffee. He drinks it all the time.
It used to be redder.
And then he married me till death do us part, y'all. You can also send us a text. The link to that is at the top of the show notes where it says, send Chris and Rob a text. This case is wild. I thought about it and the killer, John, just this past June when Lifetime released the movie Kidnapped by a Killer, the Heather Robinson story.
Okay.
And you can watch it on Lifetime. Very interesting. I'll talk a little bit about the new movie at the end of the podcast.
All right.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources: ABC News 2020, ABC News, Wikipedia, Murderpedia, the Kansas City Star, CrimeMag.com, Biography.com, the Kansas Judicial System, the Time Suck Podcast, Edubirdy.com, Courthouse News Investigation Discovery, Windows on Death Row, Radford University, Find a Grave, Investigation Discoveries, Crime Feed, CNN, The New York Times, TalesFromTheUnderworld.com, and the Chicago Tribune, among others. If you want a complete list, it's always very, very long. Just go to our show notes and you can find links to all of those.
She said time suck. You ready?
I guess, yes.
Let's do it.
John Edward Robinson is born in Cicero, Illinois, on December 27th, 1943, to Henry and Alberta. He's number 3 in a family of 5 children. He's got an alcoholic father and a mom who's a real disciplinarian. Rob, do you know what Cicero is famous for?
I do not.
Al Capone.
Oh.
Al Capone built his criminal empire in Chicago before moving to Cicero to escape the reach of the Chicago police.
I may have known that. I actually did I scored a series for Court TV on Al Capone, but that was many years ago.
And you probably weren't listening.
I was just looking for cue hits.
Don't forget also the famous Velma Kelly murdered her husband, Charlie, and her sister in Cicero in the musical Chicago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She catches them doing the number 17, the spread eagle.
Wow. Goodness.
Little John Robinson is a smart guy. They start him young, and if they would only use their powers for good instead of evil, I wouldn't have anything to talk about, though, if that was the case.
We wouldn't have a podcast.
True. At age 12, his dad sort of nudged him to join the Boy Scouts, Pack 259 to be exact. And 2 years later, in 1957, at the age of 14, he becomes an Eagle Scout. And I kind of thought that was young. That seems mighty young. So I looked it up, and in 1949, the average age of an Eagle Scout was 14.6.
Wow.
But today, it's 17. I think it may be a little bit harder to become an Eagle Scout now.
Yeah.
But little Johnny, he's already ahead of the game. After becoming an Eagle Scout, little John didn't just earn a sash full of merit badges. He got a ticket to the big leagues. He was handpicked as the only American among 120 scouts to sing for and perform for Queen Elizabeth II at the Royal Command Performance in London.
Impressive.
And who does this little songbird John bump into backstage? None other than
Bon Jovi.
Judy Garland. I think Bon Jovi was alive. Well, maybe he was born. I don't know. I don't think so. He's closer to my age, though. And Judy plants a kiss right on his cheek, and wouldn't you know it, that little moment of showbiz sparkle made the papers in Chicago.
Wow.
But if you're thinking this is where John's star kept rising, think again. Later that year, he enrolled at Quigley Preparatory Seminary, a private school for boys who dreamed of wearing a collar and serving the Lord. But John's holy aspirations hit a wall. 1 year in, he was out. He was booted out for disciplinary issues. I guess you don't want a priest who has disciplinary issues.
Yeah.
So what's a boy to do after getting the kiss of Hollywood and the boot from God's waiting room? He pivoted to medicine, or close enough.
Right.
John enrolled at Morton Junior College in Cicero to study X-ray technology. He lasted 2 years before bailing out again.
Did he get bailed or booted?
No, he just bails this time. But a pattern is starting to form. Charm, sparkle, attention, then exit stage left.
Right.
In 1963, John met Nancy Jo Lynch in Oak Hill, Illinois. These two quickly developed a romance. In 1964, in Oak Hill, at the age of 21, he moved from Cicero to Kansas City, but not before putting a ring on Nancy Jo's finger. Have you ever been to Kansas City?
I think I've driven through it. Buddies of mine, back in the 80s, we drove cross country.
Yeah, that's still, I can't, does not hold any glamour for me whatsoever.
Yeah, it was a grind, but it was still fun. It was some of my best friends, so who cared?
Well, there's Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri, right?
Right.
And Kansas City, Kansas, they're famous for all their fountains. I mean, Rome has the most fountains, like 2,000. But Kansas City has the most working fountains, around 200. It's very pretty. I went out there for a job interview right out of college. But she and John had their first child, John Jr., in 1965. And in 1967, they had a daughter, Kimberly. So they now have these 2 new children and a new zip code and a fresh start. But he's not going to get too comfortable. Despite the fact that John didn't finish school at Morton Junior College to get his license as an X-ray technician, in 1969 he took a job at Fountain Plaza X-ray Lab and the medical practice of Dr. Wallace Graham of Kansas City. Now, how did he get these jobs without the degree and certificate that he needed?
Certificated.
The certification he needed, I should say. He forged his credentials.
Oh, wow.
It's like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
And while John worked for Dr. Graham, he embezzled $33,000 from the practice.
Oops.
He was draining the accounts for months. He's forging checks, and he's even pocketing payments from patients in cash.
Wow.
Today, that's close to $250,000.
Man.
Now, when John is caught, he's arrested and convicted for theft and sentenced to 3 years probation.
That's it?
Yeah, if I was the doctor, I'd have been mad.
Yeah.
I would have been so mad.
I would have removed a kidney.
I don't know that he was that kind of doctor, but okay. A year later, in 1970, John violates his probation by moving from Kansas City to Chicago without permission from his probation officer. He takes a job as an insurance salesman at the R.B. Jones Company, and in 1971, John is arrested again for embezzling firm funds.
Wow.
He's ordered back to Kansas City, where his probation is extended, and also in 1971, Nancy Jo gave birth to a set of twins, Christopher and Christine. So Chris and Chris.
Mm-hmm.
That would be really confusing. By 1975, he's changed his MO, and now he's doing phony medical consulting through a company he formed, Professional Services Association, Inc.
Okay, whatever.
It's like Prestige Worldwide. He's arrested on charges of securities and mail fraud for soliciting investments from unsuspecting victims and misrepresenting himself as a legitimate business consultant. A federal grand jury indicted him and his phony company and fined him $2,500, then placed him on 3 more years of probation. Now, while all of this is happening, John maintains this outward appearance of this great man. He's this community-minded citizen and family man, and he becomes a scoutmaster and a baseball coach. In fact, I read he coached all of his kids' teams in one sport or another. He was a Sunday school teacher, and in 1977, he even managed to sweet-talk his way onto the board of directors of a local charitable organization dedicated to serving people with disabilities, like a workshop that employed disabled people.
All right.
And being a part of this board apparently gave him a little bit of an income as well. And in addition to that, I think he's running some side hustles that were all nefarious. But here's where our boy John really starts to shine. And by shine, I mean swindle like it's his side hustle. While a part of this board of directors, John forged letters, again, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Right.
But not just one, a bunch of letters that looked like they came from the executive director of this local charity, and they were all addressed to the mayor of Kansas City. And from the mayor, Charles B. Wheeler, he also forged and sent out to other civic leaders. So he's forging letters from the director of this board of directors, and then he's forging letters from the mayor to other people.
You know, it sort of reminds me of that story. I don't know if you've ever seen on YouTube, where the guy has 2 phones, and he calls a Chinese restaurant, and then he calls another one. He holds the phones up to each other, and then the one says, you know, can I take your order? And the other one says, well, you called me. What do you want? And the other's like, no, I need to take your order. And they start arguing with each other.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but it just reminded me of that. I think it's really funny.
Well, that's actually funny. What this guy is doing, what John's doing it's not funny at all.
Yeah.
But he's writing these letters from the leader of this organization and then from the mayor. Yeah. And these letters praised John. Of course they did, because who better to sing John's praises than John? But it gets better. But wait, there's more. He used these fake love letters about himself to cook up an award, and not just any award. He made himself Man of the Year. That's right. He created the award. He nominated himself, voted himself in, and then, because his ego needed a stage, he threw a huge awards luncheon in his own honor.
Yeah, you go big or go home.
I mean, he needs an Oscar for all of this, right?
Yeah.
And just so we're clear, all of this is happening while John is still on probation.
Right.
A sentence he finally finished in 1979, but this was all reputation laundering, but with a catered buffet. And he got a trophy for it on top of all of that.
Gosh.
As soon as his probation is over in early 1979, John took a job in March of 1979 at Guy's Foods as the employee relations manager. And Guy's Foods was primarily a potato chip company, but they were actually the first to introduce barbecued flavored chips.
I'm all in favor.
A hero of Rob's, apparently.
Absolutely.
And they also made cheese puffs. Hero of mine, tortilla chips, pretzels, popcorn, and nuts. It was founded as Guy's Nut and Candy Company in 1938, and they are still around today. Huh. But John can't keep his sticky fingers out of the company till. And in 1980, John is arrested again on multiple charges of embezzlement and check forgery. Wow. He's a really good forger.
Yeah.
He's fired from his job at Guy's, and he's ordered to pay back $50,000.
Didn't his reputation or his work follow him?
You would think.
Yeah, I mean,
you would think.
A company's going to hire you when you've been convicted a couple times for forgery and stealing?
LinkedIn wasn't a thing. There was no internet yet, but we're getting there.
Wow.
We're getting there. But after this is when his sentence is handed down in 1982. He has to serve 60 days in jail. 60 days. 2 months for stealing $50,000. That's about $1,000 a day behind bars.
Yeah.
Not a terrible exchange rate for a career con artist.
Yeah.
When he's released, John starts up a fraudulent hydroponic farm business called HydroGrow Inc. in Kansas City. He's trying really hard to maintain this image of a successful entrepreneur and community leader. He produces a 64-page promotional booklet and markets the business as a modern agricultural venture that was poised for, no pun intended, growth. He starts looking for investors, and one was a friend who was desperate to pay medical bills for his dying wife, and John promised him the moon. You're going to get all these lucrative returns. And he takes $25,000 from this man.
What a scumbag.
So he's forging documents and fabricating stories of profit and expansion, but it only exists on paper. And the investor money was all funneled into John's own bank account to support the facade of his affluence and success.
So, and forgive me, where's he living now? Is he back in Kansas City?
He's in Kansas City.
So, I mean, don't people know this guy's reputation?
Well, you would think if he's like trying to be affluent and running in certain circles that they would be like, hey, he's a shyster.
Yeah.
But I just have to tell you, I have worked, and I've worked for a company where somebody embezzled money, and they're pretty slick. And they embezzled out of this company that I worked for and had to serve some time in jail, and then got out and did it all over again and had to go to federal prison.
Wow.
So I think once they get started, they don't know how to stop, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like a drug.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, it is important to note that from the late 1970s on, John was unfaithful to Nancy Jo, his wife.
Oh, and really? You think?
Yeah, she was apparently aware of John's many instances of infidelity. So he's cheating money from friends and cheating on his wife in the sack. In the summer of 1982, John founded Equus Plus, or Equus One, positioning it as a consulting company.
Okay.
He used its legitimacy as a front to swindle even more investors, where he promised high returns. He would also use it to recruit women, sometimes for employment and sometimes as part of his new scheme of abuse. You see, John must have been reading Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And I'm being facetious. He started making sexual advances, propositions to these women that he would recruit and to his neighbors' wives.
Jeez.
Which led apparently to a fist fight with one of the husbands. I can just see them all out like pushing the lawnmowers and having barbecues, and they're all together, and then, then there's a fist fight breaking out amongst some guys in plaid shorts.
Right, yeah.
But he told some of the neighborhood guys that he had joined a secret sadomasochistic cult called the International Council of Masters. He said he'd become its slave master, and by being slave master, he was charged with the duty of luring victims to gatherings where they'd be tortured and raped by cult members.
He's telling them this?
Yeah. He's proud of himself.
Good Lord.
Yeah. The cult's purpose revolved around BDSM, bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. I can't even get BDSM right. And that's called foreshadowing. Yeah. At least I got the sentence that's called foreshadowing out. Good Lord. I haven't had a whole lot of sleep, y'all.
It's all good.
Now, while all of this is going on, he forms Equus 2 because apparently Equus 1 wasn't, a big enough of a fraudulent money suck. So this is the sister company of Equus 1.
It still reminds me of Will Ferrell.
Boats and hoes.
Yeah, exactly.
But this time he had a business partner named Irv Blattner. Now, poor Irv, I don't hear a lot about him in everything else that you read, but he managed to drag somebody else into this.
Well, this isn't fair, but with a name like Irv Blattner, I can pretty much see why.
Poor Irv.
Yeah.
But again, Equus 2 represents itself as a management or financial consulting firm. But it was just more fraudulent investment schemes as a cover for John's sadomasochistic activities. In August of 1984, John put an ad in the local newspaper for a sales representative for Equus 2 and interviewed and hired 19-year-old Paula Ghislaine Godfrey. Paula was born on June 19th, 1965, to William and Diane Godfrey. Paula was an accomplished amateur figure skater, and she was a 1983 graduate of Olathe North High School.
Okay.
Paula told her family and friends that she was, quote, being sent away for training, end quote. And according to Paula's family, John had arranged for her and a group of women to fly to San Antonio, Texas, to enroll in a clerical skills course because Paula wanted to have a career in business.
Okay.
John picked her up at her parents' home on September 1st, 1984 in Overland Park to drive her to the airport. When Paula wasn't checking in with her family for several days, like she had literally vanished off the face of the earth, Paula's father traveled to San Antonio to look for her. And what he found out was that she never checked into her hotel in San Antonio. Mr. Godfrey returned to Overland Park, where he went straight to the Equus 2 offices and demanded that John tell him the whereabouts of his daughter. And John said, I don't know what you're talking about. And Paula's dad gave John 3 days. You have 3 days to procure my daughter, or I'm going to the police. I have a special set of skills. It's Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I want my daughter back. I have a special I have a particular set of skills. Right. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
2 days later, the Godfreys receive a letter in the mail. It's postmarked from Kansas City, Kansas, and it was supposedly written by Paula. The letter was typed, and it had all kinds of grammatical errors and typos. And Paula's parents were like, no, Paula didn't make grammatical errors and typos.
Yep.
The letter said that Paula had decided to, quote, start over, end quote, leaving Overland Park. She says in the letter that she doesn't know where she might eventually settle down. She also went as far as to thank John for helping her and told her family that she was, quote, fine, and that she didn't want to see her family anymore. Paula's parents don't buy it, and they take the letter immediately to the police. Even the police think the letter is a forgery intended to keep investigators from pursuing her as a missing person. Yeah. And they actually questioned John, who told them he didn't know where Paula was. And the problem is there's no body. There's no crime.
Right.
There's no Paula. And she's 19 years old, so she's considered an adult.
Right.
Paula's body has never been found.
Really?
Around Christmas 1984, 3 months after Paula vanishes into thin air, John starts something he calls the Kansas City Outreach Program. Wouldn't you hate to be his accountant? All these different businesses he's been setting up, and I mean, how does he keep up with it? Obviously, he's not doing anything with it. He's not filing his taxes. If he's stealing money from people, he's not paying the government. Come on, Chris.
Yeah.
But seriously, he just keeps setting up more and more companies.
Right.
He set this one up supposedly to help downtrodden women.
Of course he did.
Yeah. John visited several homeless shelters and hospitals to let all the area social workers know about this program. Karen Gaddis, a former social worker at the time, said she was told the program worked with young pregnant women or women with newborns to help them get back on their feet and find a real home, a place for them to live and thrive. Right after the holidays in 1984, another social worker, Sharon Turner Jackson, gets a call from John to talk about a young lady he'd found at a women's shelter in Kansas City. He met with her, and she had agreed to do the program. Now, Sharon, the social worker, was suspicious of John because of his desire to connect with a needy white woman and her baby during the holidays, and she didn't know how he came about knowing about this young woman, but it wasn't through any of the local social workers that she knew, or at least she didn't think so.
Right.
So she's kind of like, who is this guy? He's not really going through proper channels.
Okay.
This young woman, young mother, her name was Lisa Elledge Stasi. Lisa was born on April 11th, 1965 in Huntsville, Alabama. She was a troubled 19-year-old girl who got mixed up with a man named Carl Stasi, and after she got pregnant, they got married. Then she had a baby girl, Tiffany Lynn Stasi. When the marriage fell apart within months, Carl moved to Chicago, where he re-enlisted in the Navy, and left Lisa with nowhere to go except this group home for women called Hope House.
Okay.
And while she's there, she meets a man named John Osborne. Well, it's John Robinson. This man offers her a, quote, coveted spot, end quote, in the Kansas City Outreach Program. Lisa sees this as an opportunity to make a life for her and her baby. It was a way for her to get free room and board while studying to get her GED. And he promised Lisa a job in Chicago, an apartment for her and the baby, and even daycare for this little girl.
So it just sounds like he's trying to do everything he can to make this thing sound appealing to needy type of people.
Yeah, really unsuspecting, vulnerable women.
Yeah.
On January 9th, 1985, John picks up Lisa and Tiffany at Lisa's in-laws' home. John said he had paid for Lisa and Tiffany to have a room at a hotel near his Overland Park office, the Roadway Inn in Overland Park, room 131. But later that night, Lisa calls her in-laws. She's frantic. She's yelling at her mother-in-law, quote, "They're saying you're going to take the baby from me and that I'm a bad mom," end quote.
Okay.
And the mother-in-law says back to her, quote, "We don't want to take the baby away from you," end quote. Then Lisa tells her that she's been made to sign 4 blank sheets of paper. And the mother-in-law says, don't sign anything. Don't sign anything.
Yeah.
Then Lisa says, quote, "They're coming now," end quote. And she hangs up. And that's the last thing anyone ever heard Lisa Stasi say.
Wow.
The next morning, her in-laws call the hotel looking for Lisa and the baby, but they've checked out. They're gone, and their bill is paid for by a credit card from a local business. It wasn't John Osborne who had paid for the hotel room. It's a John Robinson, and his business is Equus 2. Lisa's brother-in-law goes to check out the company. A young man in his 30s pushes the brother-in-law out the door of the business without any explanation or help with where Lisa could be. Then a strange phone call comes in. A priest, Father Martin, from a downtown Kansas City mission calls. This Father Martin, I got my air quotes up.
Yeah.
He says he's seen Lisa and Tiffany and that they're fine, but they've taken off with a man named Bill. So the in-laws call the mission to verify this phone call, and they're told there is no Father Martin at this mission.
Man.
They file a missing persons report, and the police begin their search for Lisa by talking to her estranged husband, Carl. And even though Carl and Lisa didn't have a good marriage, Carl's got a solid alibi. He's already off with the Navy. So police interview John Robinson, the man in charge of the outreach program, who says, yeah, Lisa was referred to me and I said I'd put her up in the outreach program, but she showed up with a young man named Bill, who she said was her new boyfriend. They were going to go off together and start a new life. She thanked him for his support, but she wanted to start at this new life with Bill. And Father Martin had also said in his message to the in-laws that Lisa had gone off with a guy named Bill.
Yeah.
At the same time, letters start appearing in the mail to the in-laws, a typed letter signed at the bottom by Lisa, thanking them for all that they had done, but that she was off to start her new life. There's no mention of Bill in this letter, but Kathy Stackpole of the women's shelter also received a letter thanking her, as did, believe it or not, John Robinson of the women's outreach program.
Of course he did.
So he can go to the police and say, I got a letter from her too. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But according to Lisa's mom, Pat Sylvester, Lisa didn't know how to type. And her mother said the letter didn't, quote, sound like her, end quote. But again, there's no body, no crime, and Lisa is over 18, so the investigators have little to go on except that the case feels oddly familiar to Paula Godfrey.
And the fact that there was no Father Martin.
And there's no Father Martin and no Bill.
Yeah.
Lisa will also never be heard from again. Coincidentally, at this same time, John's brother and sister-in-law, Don and Helen Robinson, had been struggling to adopt a baby through traditional channels. And John tells his brother that he knows of a baby whose mother has committed suicide. And for $5,500 in legal fees, he can deliver this baby to them.
Good.
And they agree. And a few days later, a baby girl comes to them with a set of authentic-looking adoption papers with the forged signatures of 2 attorneys and a judge.
Man.
Hold that thought.
That's just, wow.
In 1987, Catherine Clampett, a 27-year-old single mother, left her child with her parents in Wichita Falls, Texas, and moved to Overland Park, Kansas, looking for a job. She was born in Korea on May 29, 1960, but grew up in Texas after being adopted. She meets John Dawson, who promises her extensive travel and a new wardrobe. On June 15, 1987, Catherine vanishes after leaving a local hotel near the Equus 2 offices. Catherine's stepbrother calls the Overland Park police to report his sister missing because he hasn't heard from her in weeks. And he knows that she's answered an ad in the paper to be an executive secretary to a busy CEO, a man named John Dawson. But not long after her brother calls the police department to report her missing, Catherine's mom receives a letter back in Wichita Falls, a typewritten letter that doesn't sound like her at all.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
When Catherine's stepbrother calls the Equus 2 office and asks to speak with John Dawson, he's told that not only did Catherine never work there never was a John Dawson there either. But when her brother goes through her belongings in Kansas City, he finds a receipt for a hotel, and it's not signed by John Dawson, it's signed by John Robinson. So when the brother tracks down John Robinson, he finds out that John's been arrested and is getting ready to serve a prison term. Now, I want to point out that back in the late 80s, the police departments didn't share information, and they weren't computerized at all.
Sure.
So they didn't have the ability to cross-reference any of these 3 women disappearing or John's association with them, which in today's world is absolutely and completely absurd.
Sure.
But if you caught what I said, he's getting ready to serve a prison term. because he's been a busy guy. Fraud, corruption, it's all starting to catch up with him. In 1987, John is convicted of multiple fraud convictions in Kansas and again in Missouri. And he is sentenced in 1987 and incarcerated to the Western Missouri Correctional Facility from 1987 to 1993. Now, while he's in prison, he suffered a series of strokes, and that resulted in the right side of his face being partially paralyzed. Okay. Now, while he's in prison, John, who's now 44 years old, gets a job in the prison library where he meets 49-year-old Beverly Bonner. And when I read that he got a job in the prison library, it made me think of Shawshank.
Now, Beverly, that's a male name, correct?
No, this is a woman.
So it's a co-ed prison?
It's not a co-ed prison. She's not a prisoner.
She's
the prisoner librarian.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm with you now.
Do prisons have librarians now, like as a paid position? I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
But she just so happens to be married to the prison doctor, Dr. William Bonner. Okay. And John and Beverly fall in love. Now, I read in one report that he and Beverly knew each other from working at the same company in Kansas City 20 years beforehand. Regardless, it's a secret sexual affair between the prison librarian and her assistant.
I never understood these women that fall in love with prisoners.
It's a thing. Like, aren't there even reality shows about women? Yeah.
It's just it's mind-boggling.
And they write to, well, think about, all the people who write to serial killers while they're in prison. Yeah. Like love letters to them. Yeah. When John finishes his sentence, he has another fraud conviction and a parole violation he has to atone for. But when he leaves prison in 1993, Beverly leaves her husband, the prison doctor, for John.
Wow.
She moves to Florida, where John sets up a home so Beverly can work for him, who, by the way, is still married to Nancy Jo. Nancy Jo's still visiting him in prison and married to him and supporting him.
Wow.
John tells Beverly he wants her to run his hydroponic vegetable business, Hydroglow. So he's back to this. Same bogus company he had his friend invest $25,000 in, right? The one with the dying wife. By this time, Beverly has settled her divorce with Dr. Bonner, and John arranges for her to receive her alimony checks through a P.O. box in Kansas. And when that small task is taken care of, Beverly Bonner is never seen or heard from again.
Wow.
However, her alimony checks are still being cashed.
Oh.
By 1994, John Robinson has discovered the internet. Lord help us all. Now, for all of you young people out there, here's the 411 on the World Wide Web back in 1994. It's the very year the internet was born, and Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, published the very first website, which looked more like a crude listing on Craigslist with text and blue hyperlinks. And in 1994, there were 10,000 websites, only 10,000 websites, and only 2 million computers connected to the internet. And believe it or not, Rob and I are so old, we were both a part of those 2 million computers.
Remember this sound?
Yeah, dial-up, yeah. I used CompuServe. It was a dial-up online service.
That was my first one.
Got really popular in the 90s. I used it to share files between myself and clients. And it took forever for you to download something, but it was better than waiting for FedEx, which was what we used back then. Yep. Yeah. And we did all that before AOL came along, where, by the way, you paid by the minute.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
It's like with kids today when their Wi-Fi is slow. Y'all don't know slow. We walked uphill both ways in the snow on the internet.
Exactly. Oh, man.
But with the invention of the internet came chat rooms. And it wasn't long before the chat was about sex. And when this happened, John got himself 5 computers and several online monikers, including Jim Turner and Slave Master. Because the BDSM subculture went online. bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism.
Wow.
And he's all about it.
Yeah.
Now, remember how John told his neighborhood bros that he was into BDSM all those years ago,
Right,
and he was a slave master? Well, with the internet, John Robinson was living his best life. He's got his 5 computers, his many online personas, and John starts trolling BDSM chat rooms looking for women who enjoy playing the submissive partner role.
Man.
An early online correspondent with John was Sheila Dale Howell Faith. Sheila had been depressed since her husband, John Darwin Faith Jr., had passed away in 1991. And Sheila was born on February 12th, 1949 in Dallas, Texas. She's 45 years old, and she has a 15-year-old daughter named Debbie Lynn, who is confined to a wheelchair due to her cerebral palsy. Now, Debbie Lynn Faith was born on November 17th, 1978 in Dallas, Texas. That's the daughter. John tells Sheila that he's a wealthy businessman, and if she comes to Kansas, he will take care of her and her daughter. And he offered to pay Debbie's medical expenses and give Sheila a job because he's a rich philanthropist. In 1994, Sheila and her daughter Debbie moved from Fullerton, California to Kansas City, and once they arrive, they disappear quickly. But the pension and disability checks Sheila had arranged to now be delivered to Kansas City were cashed for the next 7 years.
Yeah.
Eventually, John becomes really well known in the more popular BDSM online chat rooms. He would meet these women in these chat rooms and tell them if they were with him, they would see the world, sail on his yacht, fly to Europe all the time. And it's in one of these rooms in 1997 that he meets Isabella Lewicka. Isabella is a 21-year-old Polish immigrant and art student who is living in Indiana. Isabella moves to Kansas City to be with John. Now, mind you, he's still married to Nancy Jo and receiving Debbie Faith's disability checks and Beverly's alimony checks. And when Isabella arrives, John gives her an engagement ring and actually takes her to the county registrar's office where they applied for and paid for a marriage license that is never picked up. She tells everyone that John is her husband. He tells people that she is his cousin. Now, back home in Indiana, Isabella has told her parents that she's married, but she never tells her parents what her new husband's name is. What Isabella did do was sign a 115-item slave contract that gave John almost total control over every aspect of her life, including her bank accounts. Then sometime during the summer of 1999, Isabella disappeared. John told a web designer he employed that she'd been caught smoking weed and was deported back to Poland.
Okay.
As Isabella was making her exit in John's life, a new woman was making her entrance. In March of 2000, 27-year-old Suzette Troughton became John's next submissive. A licensed practical nurse by day, she was a submissive slave by night. She moved from Michigan to Kansas so she and John could travel the world together and so she could take care of John's ailing father who had diabetes. Well, she was a nurse after all.
Right.
Suzette Marie Troughton was born on April 13th, 1972. She was the daughter of Carolyn Troughton. On February 14th, 2000, Suzette moves to Kansas to begin her new life, and for the next 2 weeks, she rents an apartment on Robinson's credit card. He would visit her regularly, explaining that he had business deals to conclude before she could begin her new career with him. John and Suzette had regular sex, taking photographs, which Suzette would email to her friend, Crystal Ferguson. Now, I've heard of sending selfies before to someone that you love.
Wow.
By the way, people, just don't do it because they're out there. They're just out there.
They will never, ever go away.
Polaroids.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Suzette's mother, Carolyn, received several typed letters supposedly mailed while the couple was abroad, even though the envelopes were postmarked in Kansas City.
Jeez.
After a month of her employ, Suzette's mother can no longer reach her daughter. She contacts this international businessman, John, and she's told that Suzette has run off with another man, a man named Jim Turner.
At least he didn't say Bill.
And it's not Bill this time. John tells her mother that they were going to be sailing around the world and she wouldn't be working for him anymore after stealing money from him. Now, Suzette's mom doesn't buy the story, and she contacts the police. Suzette is very much a mama's girl. They talk almost every single day. She knows something is wrong. I mean, I've got a daughter who's very much a mama's girl, and every time she walks the dog, I get a phone call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when she doesn't hear from her, she knows something's wrong.
Right.
Also, she stops getting email. You know, her friend stops getting these emails that sound like Suzette.
Right.
And they're signed Suze, a name that she never used. That would be like me signing something Kristen.
Yeah.
I mean.
Or me, Bill. Sorry.
You've never been a Bill.
Bill seems to be a popular name in this.
It is. When Caroline Troughton calls the police, she calls and she tells them the name of this guy. It's John Robinson. Mm-hmm. And finally, the police are like, well, maybe, he's a con man. He served some time. Right. Maybe we should look into him.
Yeah.
By 2000, the FBI Kansas City office finally gets involved. They couldn't figure out what John was really up to. And at this point, John is running a magazine company for mobile homes and trailer parks. He's still married to Nancy Jo. He has 4 kids. He's really well liked in the local community. Even though he had these convictions for these con jobs and embezzlement, he never really worked a legit job where he didn't cheat the company out of some kind of money.
Right.
But why would a con man be involved with the disappearance of 4 women? And how could they attach the disappearance of these women to him without any bodies? Mm-hmm. Well, the authorities get a new lead when letters start appearing from Suzette Troughton in her mother's mailbox. They're all signed by her. And then they get a letter from California and then Veracruz, Mexico. And the mother says, these letters aren't from my daughter. It's not her. But what the most troubling part for her was the signature at the bottom was Suzette's. But they don't go after John, not yet. They don't want to tip their hat to him.
Sure.
Instead, they start questioning Suzette's friends and family, and what they discover is that Suzette was into BDSM. That and her 2 beloved puppies, these Pekingese dogs, Pika and Harry. She didn't go anywhere without these dogs, and no one had seen these dogs.
Oh.
She was big into BDSM chat rooms, and since it's a practice conducted in secret, the FBI agents are all stumped.
Yeah.
Because of this is all new, and it's all news to them. They're like, BDSM, what is that?
Right.
What are we doing here? What are we talking about?
Right.
According to Suzette's friends, she was a BDSM slave, and she often surfed the net looking for a master. She wanted to be owned sexually. And according to her friends, Suzette had recently found a new master online and was going to relocate to Kansas City to work for this guy, to be his slave, and to take care of his elderly father. But her friends feared that she was in over her head.
Right.
Now, while John has this checkered background, there's nothing to show he's involved in anything like murder. And in fact, the police and FBI looked at him like he's a con artist and nothing more. Steve Hames, a former district supervisor for the Missouri Board of Probation and Parole, who investigated John starting in 1985, said, quote, he looks more like the Pillsbury Doughboy than he does the Chainsaw Massacre guy. He's very congenial. He smiles. He laughs. He tells stories. He slaps you on the back. He's got a good handshake, end quote. By all means, if he's got a good handshake. He can't be a killer.
Right.
Authorities thought he's just a con man, not a murderer, but he's still attached to these disappearances, so they needed to be checked out. And they discover his whole, quote, working with charities to help unwed mothers routine. And it seemed hinky to the police and the FBI. Well, yeah, think?
Yeah, exactly. Nice deduction.
Yeah. What they're thinking is that maybe he wanted these unwed and downtrodden women for his BDSM habit. So local police and FBI start to dig. All the retired detectives and FBI agents that were around during the 80s and 90s, including his probation officer, they all get together to talk about him.
Right.
And meanwhile, Caroline Troughton, Suzette's mom, is not giving up. She tells the police to find her daughter's beloved Pekingese dogs. Find Pika and Harry, and you will find her. Mm-hmm. Because she says she would not go anywhere without her dogs.
Okay.
And what police discovered was that 2 dogs had been found abandoned at a trailer park on March 1st, 2000. The same day Suzette disappeared. Animal control was called to pick up the dogs, and a detective visited a family who had adopted one of them to see if it belonged to Suzette. And when the officer called Pika by name, the dog's ears pricked up and his tail wagged, and the dog ran to the detective.
Oh, man.
Now, because of all this unwed mother business, the FBI thinks maybe he's selling babies. And that's when they realized that Tiffany Stasi would be 15 years old right now. Remember, they know this one woman disappeared and she had a baby with her.
Right.
So the FBI reaches out to all their informants that are out in the underbelly of Kansas City. And a guy in a topless bar admitted that he was being paid to be on the lookout for women who fit what John wanted. He would bird dog women for him. Another posed for pictures with him. And then John tried to recruit her, telling her she could make $2,000 to $3,000 a weekend flying around with him while he worked his high-powered businessman job. Yeah.
Wow.
So then they're thinking maybe John is selling these women into prostitution across state lines or even international lines.
Right.
Because they've got all this circumstantial evidence, but they have nothing concrete. So they have no choice but just to start watching John 24/7. They set up surveillance on him like nobody's business. They watch his every move, including his trips to a 16-acre property he owns in Lynn County, Kansas. Within weeks, they learn he's living a dual life. At home, he's a family man with 4 kids. During the day, he's in the inner city hanging out with nefarious characters. The FBI follows him to homes and motels all day until 5 p.m. when his wife gets home. And that's when John becomes
the Pillsbury Doughboy.
The family man, yeah. John Robinson, he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, but the authorities have wiretaps and search warrants, and they're listening to him, and they're coming for all of his email accounts. And the FBI actually contacted 2 women in Canada who were in contact with John in one of these chat rooms. And these women start sharing the emails that he was sending to them with the FBI.
Wow.
And what they discover is that he's into BDSM chat rooms and he's looking for sex slaves. They discover that he calls himself a master in his emails on the web. He's really consistent in how he works. He finds people online who want a master, then he entices them further by offering them a job with him because he's wealthy and willing to help them see the world on his jets and yachts. And it's 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
In 1990 and 2000.
Yeah.
He promises them everything, the moon, enough for women to pack up and be with him. And the FBI is shocked to learn that women will just leave everything to become John's slave, the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Yeah.
They set up stakeouts at motels where John has his meetings. I've got my air quotes up again.
Sure.
And the FBI sits in the hotel room next to where John is entertaining a slave, a sex slave. And law enforcement could tell somebody was getting hurt. They can hear what's going on, but they didn't know if it was consensual or not.
Right.
Then Suzette's mother agrees to call John and have her conversation taped, hoping he would say something incriminating. And here's how that call went.
Okay.
John says, "Oh, hun, don't worry. You know, I wouldn't get nervous." And her mother says, I'm nervous. Susie always calls me. So, oh, well, from what I understand, they're on a boat somewhere and she couldn't, kind of hard to call. And Carolyn says, I'm really getting very nervous about this. I don't know if I should maybe call the police or something. And John says, why? And Carolyn says, well, because I haven't heard from her. And that's not. And then John says, honey, she's a big girl.
Wow.
Later on in the phone call, Carolyn Troughton asked John whether she should notify someone about her daughter's appearance. Hun, I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'm sure that when they hit the next place, they'll send us a card or call us or email us or something.
Us.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Then the police get a break in the case. A woman, one of John's slaves, Brenda, she comes forward telling the police that she had come to town to work for a man named James Turner. She was broke and down on her luck, but when she meets this James Turner at a local motel, he hits her when they've had an argument, and she goes to the front desk and asks, who rented this room? And they tell her his name is John Robinson. Now, she knows he's lying to her because he's given her another name.
Sure.
She files a complaint with the police accusing John Robinson of sexual battery. Days later, another woman comes forward with a similar complaint, sexual battery and robbery against John. She claimed he stole $500 worth of sex toys from her.
Good Lord.
With how many sex toys does she have?
How many suitcases full of that?
With 2 accusations and their search warrants, they're ready to make an arrest. They also learn of a young female he was trying to lure down to his farm, and that's when the authorities were like, enough. Now, I feel like they've waited a little too long, but I'm Monday morning quarterbacking here.
Sure.
On June 2nd, 2000, 10:15 a.m., authorities go to his home, number 36 Monterey Lane, Santa Barbara Estates Mobile Home Park in Olathe. He answers the door, and he's very calm. He's polite. He invites them in. They tell him he's under arrest and that they've been watching him for a long time. And they don't waste any time before they ask John about Lisa Stasi, Tiffany Stasi, Caroline Godfrey, Catherine Clampett, and Suzette Trout. So they're just dropping all these names.
Sure.
And John turns pale, and he starts to hyperventilate. When they walk him out of the house in cuffs, he regains his composure and says, quote, y'all are really making a big production out of this, aren't you? End quote.
Man.
Armed with warrants, the FBI confiscates his computers. They also go after some storage units and the family farm in Lynn County. And the storage locker in Olathe was a gold mine. It was filled with IDs and birth certificates and driver's licenses of all these young women. Things you don't give up unless you're gone.
Yeah.
But they still don't have any bodies. So they go to the Lynn County farm where they take with them cadaver dogs. Sergeant Roth of the Kansas City Police Department was one of the investigators who went to John's farm with the dogs, and immediately the dogs get a hit around some trash outside of the trailer on the farm property. And by the trash, there were barrels, 88-gallon hazmat barrels. As Sergeant Roth rolled one of the barrels out, it fell over, and a thin line of blood came out of the barrel. Inside, they found a naked, blindfolded, decomposing body lying face down in a fetal position. They believe it's Suzette Troughton. The second barrel, they found the body of Isabella Lewicka. She doesn't match anybody the police are looking for. So at the time, they don't know it's her.
Right.
They load these barrels into a truck so they could send them off for autopsies. They both died from blunt force trauma to the head, likely a small ball-peen hammer.
Jeez.
There are no defensive wounds. But then June 5th, the task force goes to John's Missouri storage locker. There they found 3 more barrels marked, quote, rendered pork fat, end quote. Kitty litter had been put down everywhere to mask the smell. The barrels were in a state of disintegration, and inside each of the 3, police found women. These were the women the police didn't even know that they were missing. Beverly Bonner, the prison librarian, Sheila and Debbie Faith, the mother-daughter duo who'd been lured out under the idea that John would pay for their daughter's medical expenses. Remember, she was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
They were all killed by blunt force trauma. And remember, he continued to get checks for Beverly and Sheila and her daughter.
Yeah.
And he made over $80,000 on Sheila's pension and her daughter's disability checks, and over $85,000 from Beverly Bonner, the librarian's alimony. Now, Sheila and Beverly's relatives had received letters from them typed with their signature, but no one in their family ever reported them missing. The families knew that something wasn't quite right, but at the same time, they were all getting these emails and letters, and the only time anyone was ever suspicious was when Beverly Bonner's son died. Her ex-husband thought it was odd that she didn't come to the funeral, but he'd been getting emails that she was jetting all over the world for her work, and he figured her work must have been more important.
Yeah.
Still, there's no sign of Lisa Stasi, Paula Godfrey, or Catherine Clampett. And the police and FBI think they're dead, but they don't have bodies. But based on what the police and FBI do find, they raise John's bail to $5 million.
Wow.
When they search his offices and home, they find blank letters with Suzette Troughton's signature at the bottom. They find photocopies of letters that looked like the letters relatives of the missing had received. In his storage locker, they find a photocopy of a Roadway Inn receipt from 1985, and the name on it is Lisa Stasi. The police and FBI are like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And as this case breaks open even wider, police receive a tip that John's brother Don and his wife Helen had adopted a baby girl in 1985. And again, the police are like, holy shit.
Yeah.
John's wife, Nancy Jo, gave the police a photograph of this baby. It was Tiffany. And the police do a preliminary search using Tiffany's footprint from her birth certificate, and it is a match. Later on, DNA will prove that that is who Tiffany is.
Wow.
John's brother and sister-in-law thought getting their baby was all on the up and up. And now Heather Tiffany Robinson, the teenage girl, is shocked to discover that she's the daughter of a murder victim and bought and paid for. But she stays with her parents. Those are her parents. She loves them very much. They didn't know what was happening. Heather always knew she was adopted. She also knew she didn't like the feelings she had when she was around her Uncle John. Quote, "He always gave me this really off-putting feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's like walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night when you know someone is behind you, approaching you closer and closer. You just felt that dead drop in your stomach," end quote.
Wow.
October 7th, 2002, John stands trial for the murder of Lisa Stasi, Suzette Troughton, and Isabella Lewicka. He pleads not guilty. If he's convicted, John Robinson could face the death penalty.
Right.
There were more than 23,000 pages of police reports and more than 100 witnesses. They recovered 18 hammers from John Robinson's property, and they'd all been examined in a lab. They could never say if one of them had ever been used as the murder weapons, but why do you have 18 ball-peen hammers?
Right.
It took the jury less than a day to deliver a guilty verdict on October 29, 2002. John Robinson was sentenced to death in January of 2003. Now, because he committed crimes in both Kansas and Missouri, John faced charges in both states. So after his trial wrapped in Kansas, he had to go to trial in Missouri. And in Missouri, authorities offered him a deal where if he pled guilty to the 5 murders, he would avoid the death penalty. They wanted him to give the location of the remains of the 3 women who hadn't been found yet. And he took the plea, but he gave them no further information. And to this day, Lisa, Paula, and Catherine's bodies have never been found.
How sad.
In 2005, after John Robinson had been sentenced to death, and after 41 years of marriage, Nancy Jo files for divorce, citing incompatibility and irreconcilable differences.
Yeah, think?
Poor Nancy Jo.
Can you imagine?
No. My heart goes out to this woman. In 2006, Lisa Stasi's daughter, Heather Robinson, files a civil suit against Truman Medical Center in Kansas City and social worker Karen Gaddis. The suit accused Gaddis of putting John Robinson in touch with Stasi after John lied about his charitable organization that helped out young mothers. In 2007, Heather and the hospital reached a settlement for an undisclosed sum, which Heather split with her biological grandmother, Patricia Sylvester. Mm-hmm. Heather also won a second judgment in 2007, preventing John Robinson from profiting from any future potential book sales or film rights. Now, I want to say that in 2006, the body of a young woman was found in a barrel in an area of rural Iowa where John reportedly had a business partner. The identity of the victim, whose remains forensics experts say could have been in the barrel for over 20 years.
Wow.
It remains, in question. They don't know if it was part of his group of women.
Sure.
Kansas and Missouri police both say that there are long stretches of time when John remained unaccounted for over the years, and they fear that there are more women in more barrels that they just don't know about.
Right.
But John isn't saying a word. He's kept this secret of what he did with all these other women all these years, and he won't tell. They think he feels like it's his last little bit of control that he has in this world. In November 2015, the Kansas Supreme Court vacated the Troughton and Stasi murder convictions on technicalities, but upheld the Lewicka conviction and its accompanying death sentence. He only needs one death sentence to be put to death.
Sure.
The ruling marked the first time Kansas's highest court has upheld a death sentence since the reinstatement of capital punishment there in 1994. The next year, in 2016, John filed an appeal and a motion to have the death sentence thrown out, alleging that the death sentence was imposed in violation of Kansas and the United States constitutions. He filed the appeal himself, though he did ask for an attorney to be appointed to help him. His death sentence was upheld.
Good.
At age 81, John Edward Robinson sits on Kansas's death row at the El Dorado Correctional Facility, right where he belongs. Mm-hmm. In June of 2025, just a couple months ago, Lifetime aired a TV adaptation about John and his connection with Tiffany Stasi, Heather Robinson. It's called Kidnapped by a Killer, the Heather Robinson story. It starred Steve Guttenberg as John, Jana Kramer from One Tree Hill as an investigator in the case, and Rachel Stubington, who plays the funny best friend of Lukita Maxwell on Apple's Shrinking, one of my favorite shows. If you have Apple, watch Shrinking. Great writing. But she plays like the best friend.
Okay.
I did read that John had several infractions as a prisoner, including one in 2024 for theft. I guess some guys never learn, right?
Yeah.
But that is the amazing story of the Internet's first serial killer, John Robinson. And that's all I have to say about that. For nearly 7 years, Jane Doe has lived in the shadows, her past buried deep beneath layers of secrecy and silence. After completing more than was asked of her in her last assignment for the enigmatic Kaiwolf project, Jane Doe vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of dead bodies and unanswered questions. But now, as the specter of her past returns with a vengeance, Jane finds herself thrust back into a world she thought she'd left behind forever. When her former sins come knocking on her door, Jane is faced with an impossible choice: continue to hide in the shadows, or once again take up arms against the forces that threaten to tear apart the fabric of society. With enemies lurking around every corner and allies who may not be what they seem, Jane must rely on her wits, training, and her unyielding determination to survive. And while trust is a luxury she cannot afford, Jane must confront the truth about herself and her past. As the clock ticks, she realizes that the line between family, friend, and foe are razor thin, and in the end, the only person she can rely on is herself. Jane Doe 4 Charlotte is available September 24th, 2024. No name, no regrets, no mercy.
Okay, so my takeaway from this whole thing is I don't understand why some women are attracted to, the bad boys, guys who are either prisoners or convicted of heinous crimes or whatever. I don't understand that.
Think about all the love letters that were written to Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
He filled the courtroom.
Yeah.
I mean, the courtroom was filled with women who wanted to be with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, too, is my second takeaway is the fact that, does he deserve death? Absolutely.
Yes.
And as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for someone that's done this stuff, sitting in jail for me,
Sure.
feeding. However, the fact that he's had to sit there for this long
Yes.
with no freedom and just have to deal with it, that gives you a little bit of satisfaction.
A little bit of comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any comfort for any. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's more torture for him to have to be there than to be dead. But
Well, if he's going to be dead, he's going to be going straight to hell.
he's
so
going straight to hell.
I don't know which is worse.
Yeah, my heart goes out to all these families.
Yeah.
I mean, because he really was a con man, and then he was a con man who turned deadly because, he had these fetishes of being a slave master and stuff. And then, when he was done with them, he'd just pack them up in a barrel like they were trash.
Sad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he's gone. We don't have to worry about him. He's done. So
he's sitting in jail.
He's
in
sitting
prison.
in jail.
He's sitting in prison, I should say.
Let's talk about a few people that may not have gone to prison for that long, but they're really stupid with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right, number one, he went that-a-way.
He went that way.
Yep. A crook in California may already have a lock on the dumbest criminal award.
Well, that would be pretty hard, but I'm willing to listen to this.
Well, here goes. Authorities had little trouble tracking the thief down after he stole 100 GPS trackers, along with other items from the Santa Clara office of tech firm Roambi, as I believe that's how it's pronounced, Roambi. NBC4 reports the company's devices help producers track goods as they are shipped around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. The moment we realized they had a box of trackers, we went into recovery mode, says company co-founder. Let me make sure I say this correctly. Vidya Subramania.
I mean, I can see where this is really a smart thing. You can see where things are going when they get stolen.
Yeah. He said, we notified the police and equipped them to track the devices. And in about 5 or 6 hours, it was done. And so was the crook.
Moral of the story? Don't steal GPS.
Yes, exactly. All right, number two, fill her up.
Fill her up.
A Round Rock police officer and his canine made an unexpected discovery during a traffic stop last weekend.
Okay.
Police say the bust happened along the Interstate 35. Round Rock police say the officer was conducting a routine traffic stop for tailgating when they got conflicting stories from people in the car. A search by the canine revealed the drugs were hidden in the gas tank that was modified. The drugs weighed in at, get this, 71 pounds with a street value of, wait for it, and I'm doing my best, Dr. Evil, $2 million.
$2 million.
That's a lot of drugs.
No, good boy.
Yep.
Good boy.
Nathan Leon Fields, 36, of Alabama, was arrested and charged with manufacture or delivery of a controlled substance. He's done.
I like how you said Alabama.
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 Yeah. All right, number three, and finally. A call for help.
Okay.
An idiot criminal, aren't they all, walked into this cell phone store in Texas with the intent to rob the place. The employee realizes very quickly what's going on and gets herself and the customers out of the building, then locks the doors behind her. He makes multiple attempts to escape from the store that he has just robbed, including shooting the lock, throwing his body into the door, and even resorting to begging with passerbys.
Oh, that's too good. I hope this is all on film.
The panic sets in as he realizes that he is trapped and has nothing left to do but await the arrival of the police.
Bless his heart. Bless his heart.
Oh, silly, stupid.
Aw. Those were, all three of them. Not too smart. But I do want to say to the drug dog, good boy.
Yeah,
good boy. You got a treat for that.
Sit, Ubu.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com. When you get there, there's a pull-down menu. And while you're there, you can also suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime. Scotty would have just been like, is there a chicken nugget somewhere in the seat?
He'd have been sniffing around the floor. Looking for a crumb.
For sure. That's my amazing husband out there.
And that's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.